Hi, I'm Paul Marcel. This is part 2 of my review of Festool's MFT system. In this video, I'm not going to talk so much about the parts of the MFT system as I'm going to talk about some of my modifications that I've made to my table. Now, they're all non-destructive, so I can easily back them out. So you might want to consider trying them on your table and see how you like it, because I think I would never go back to having one without these modifications. All of them have been documented on my blog in the past with photos and a lot of text, including part numbers and what you need to order from the Festool ECAT system, which is their part replacement system. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is a third-party accessory for the MFT that is just fantastic, and a large part of my calibration is completely dependent on this, and we'll go over it in more detail. But what those are these Qwas dogs. Now, what a Qwas dog is it's a 20 millimeter diameter dog, just like, so it fits perfectly in the holes of the MFT. If you remember, these are 20 millimeter holes. It's a ½ millimeter diameter larger on the top so that it doesn't fall through. So they make for great little low profile dogs, and there's no play in them. And the other thing is they're accurately machined, so there are a number of benefits that we can go over here in a minute. Now, I did happen to get, maybe because this is near Valentine's Day, I have these Valentine's issued ones. They're actually some dogs that I ordered custom from Quas, and you can get any of those done. These are even lower profile. I got these so that if I wanted to do planing, it would just stop any material from going off, even if it's a thinner piece. I don't have to worry about digging my plane blade into these aluminum dogs. And also I got them drilled so that it could take a 1/4-20 screw through it in case I wanted to attach any jigs onto the top. So the reason for the color is actually because they were unanodized, and I tried my hand at anodizing, which has also been documented. They would have come out a little better if it wasn't that Quas's quality assurance means that he put a lot of wax on them before I got them. But otherwise, it was an interesting little project. Now, if we look at these Qwas dogs, we also have to take a look at the grid. Now, the grid for the MFT table, they're 20 millimeter dog holes, but they're 96 millimeters on center. But the important part is these are drilled by a CNC machine, so these are completely accurate. This is 90 degrees. This column of dog holes is completely 90 degrees to this row of dogs, and it continues on down the line. So with accurately machined dogs like the Qwas dogs, we can easily put these one after another in a single hole, and we can put a straight edge up to it, and the straight edge isn't going to have any gaps. It's dead straight. But we can also place them in a 90-degree orientation, and now we know that we're going to have, this is going to be dead square. So we can take large advantage of that when we're doing positioning on the table. This is the fence that comes with the table for the 1080. Okay, so it has just a flat front here, a little track on the top that's used for the flag stop, and then there's a track near the back, and then what these clamps here do, these are the clamps that would normally be on the back, they're the fence clamps. There's a feather key on it, and the feather key rides in this T-track that's on the top. That's why it's going to be different on your MFT3, but there's something similar to that. And then this portion clamps down by grabbing that T-track that's in the back. All right, and it holds it in place. That's how the 1080 works, and the MFT3 has something similar to that. Now, I ordered this off the ECAT system so that I had one already with my MFT system, and then I got the extra. I put the two of them in the back, and then I clamped down this fence by removing the miter gauge. I clamped it down directly all the way to the back. Now, if you were to see my table, right here is where you can see, the sun bleached the tabletop a little bit because I have a garage door here that pans over it sometimes. This is where the fence was located previously. Let's put it upside down so it's flat. This is where the fence was located previously, but now I've moved it back. So I've actually gotten myself 4.5 inches of additional cross-cut capacity on this table, bringing it up to 27.5 inches, which is honestly fantastic. So what I did is I took this clamp and I slid it into the back, and then I hold down the back of this fence. And I can show you that right here. Of course, you got to unscrew a little bit. So this is my fence. Now you'll notice that my fence also has a Starrett self-adhesive ruler on it that has imperial and metric on it. I'll show you how we get to calibrate this, because normally the fence does not come with a ruler on it, and certainly it's not calibrated. So I wanted a way that I can have this on there and make cuts by directly setting the flag and making the cut and knowing it was accurate. And I also wanted the repeatability so that if I ever moved anything or bumped it hard, I could recalibrate it within seconds, or at least verify calibration, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So you can see how I've attached it to the back of the table. Fine, let me just put this back. You just slap it back there, and you cinch it down. Alright, we're ready to go. Well, actually not. I can tell already that my kerf is going to go right through my fence, and honestly I have no guarantee that that's been set parallel to these dog holes. So I need to do something about that. What I did is I took these Quas dogs, you put them in 2 of the holes, and then you make a shim with the precision that only Bridge City Tool Works could have out of MDF, exotic MDF imported from Africa. But what this shim is, I had to cut it correctly the first time, make some simple adjustments until I got it to be just perfect on here. But now that I have it, I keep it under my table and I can re-verify my fence. The way that I re-verify the fence, or at least set it up, like in this case here, it's brand new and it's all moving, is I put it between this dog and this dog over here, pull the fence towards me, tighten it down. There we go. Done. Now this fence is parallel to these dog holes. I'm ready to go. But actually that's not the case either, because I'm still cutting through this kerf line here, and honestly I have no guarantee at all that this fence here is 90 degrees. I mean, look, there's some motion there, and of course there's the guide rail portion in the front here that, okay, I have a stop here, but how did I get that stop to be accurate? And how can I re-verify it or reset it if I ever needed to take the whole thing off? So again, you reach into your bin of exotic MDF imported from Africa. But I did reach into the MDF pile and I cut yet another one with my spectacular handwriting labeling it that this is my Quas dog alignment rail for the guide rail. So what I have here is I'm going to put a dog here and another dog there, put the piece of MDF up against it, tip down the rail, and basically the position of this needs to be where the guide rail slams up against it perfectly. Now, how did I set this? If you read the blog article, basically all I need to do is take an arbitrary piece, I put it there, I set the front rail to it. This is all the first time, okay? So I set the guide rail position in the front to it, and I set the back one to it, and then I cinch down both stop nuts. Okay, then after that, this becomes my guide rail. So this is the guide rail alignment piece. So it's exceptionally easy to set up, and you'll see that in the article. Now I just go to do this if I ever want to re-verify that everything is correct. I can put it there, drop it down. It's not all together there. Now it is, and I can tighten it up. Now, of course, it happens to be where I already have a stop nut, but if that wasn't there, this is how I could set it and make sure that it's in the right place. So now I know the cutting edge of this is parallel to this row of dogs. So if this is parallel to this row of dogs, and this guide rail is now cutting parallel to a column of dogs, and those are guaranteed to be 90 degrees by the nature of the CNC cutting, I now know that this is accurate for a crosscut. And I did verify that by using a large piece of MDF that I had, put it across here, measured it with millimeters all the way out to a far distance, cross-cut it here, measured the hypotenuse and calculated how long that should be, and it was, you can easily eyeball down to 1/3 of a millimeter, and it was better than that. So to me, this is very, very square. More square than I could probably get my table saw set up to. So, again, a very useful way of calibrating your table. But I'm still cutting through, my fence. And I have this tape on there, and who knows if that's even calibrated properly. So how am I going to get that set? That's where another dog comes into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this dog here and this other dog here. This is all described in my blog article again. A separate one. I have 3. We're going to go back to the piece of MDF that was used to set the location of this fence. In fact, let me go ahead and loosen this up because we already know that we need to move it. So then there's a third piece, and this one here is described in setting up the fence. This one's exceptionally easy to make. Once you have these three pieces, this is what it is. I just put the fence back, and now we're going to go and calibrate it all the way to being dead accurate on the fence measurement and also parallel to the row of dogs. I'm just going to put this piece back here. If you take a look, my piece, to get this measurement you'll have to read the article, but it's 142 millimeters for me. What I'm going to do is move my flag stop over. I'm going to set it to 142 millimeters. For the die-hard people that do imperial, that's the little tiny numbers that are on the two-piece metric sticks. Now that I've got that there, I'm going to put this piece of MDF here. I've set this to 142, the number that's on this block. I'm just going to slide it over till it bumps that dog. I'm done. Pull this forward, tighten it. There we go. So normally this part of your guide rail, you'll have set it up once according to how I created this shim. And once you've done that, pretty much this has always stayed the same. I've never had to adjust it. I take this off routinely and I just bump it up against the stop and I'm okay. This back fence, every now and then I'll lug a big piece of ply or some other rough lumber that I'm cutting and I'll bump that fence pretty hard and I want to make sure that it's okay. All I do is I take these two pieces, do exactly what I showed you, and right now this fence, the scale on here is calibrated. It's also down to within 1/3 of a millimeter, easily eyeballed, to the cut line from my TS75, and it's parallel and it's giving me crosscuts that are accurate. So it's a fantastic system for doing your calibration, and you're only going to need 2 of the dogs in order to do that. Now, there is another side of this, and that would be the offcut side. So let me move this flag stop here out of the way. I did a similar thing to if you saw the way that I did this calibration where I bumped it up against the dog, right after I took an accurate measurement. I wanted a similar situation like this for doing offcuts. So this is my offcut fence. Through the ECAT system, I purchased another one of the fences. I bought another Starrett rule. Of course, this Starrett rule reads right to left. This one here reads left to right. And it's also imperial and metric because I prefer that. Now, I did happen to get an extra flag stop. That was actually because I ordered the wrong thing once from somebody. But it works out very, very conveniently here. I ordered 2 more of these fence clamps that you can use on the back. Again, that's the part that's holding my existing fence. And I have those sitting here. The way this works, and I had to calibrate it once, and that's what this block is that you see on the back of the fence. And you'll see in the article it explains how to do that, and it's also very trivial to set up. But this is how I put an accurately set offcut fence down onto my table and get it set up and ready to use. I put it on the back of the table here, push it back into these fence clamps, which I always end up tightening up. So I push it into the back, tighten them back up a little bit, slide it over until this block bumps, and there we go. That's calibrated, and again, it's down to well within 1/3 of a millimeter accurate. So the way that I would use this is I could put a piece of ply on here, drop the rail down. I could set this flag stop up. I've actually got it sitting here at, well, let me adjust it a bit. There, 3 inches. The way I have this calibrated now, I can slide this over till it bumps that flag stop. If I were to cut this piece with my 75, this is calibrated taking into account the kerf that's on my saw. So I can do a cut here, and this is going to be 3 inches. And I can repeat that, of course, because I've got the flag stop on there. Now, you'll probably ask, why didn't I use a piece of MDF and some dogs to ensure that this fence is parallel to these dog holes? In my case, I don't care, actually. If you read the article, it'll describe a little bit about how this is recessed back. I don't want it to be exactly in line with this fence. I want it further back. I don't want something, if something goes wrong with this fence, if I bump it, I don't set it up quite right, I don't want this one to be slightly proud and, you know, my piece of wood to be exaggerating, skewed out. It's going to make a bad cut. I want this to be the only fence that aligns it. So that's how come I don't have to do that for this one. But this offcut fence is enormously useful, and I use it quite often. after I came up with the idea. Well, now we've talked about the modifications I made to my table as far as the fence and being able to do offcuts and having accurate measurements and calibrating it quickly. And all those things there alone are great. But the Quas dogs actually provide you with a little bit more.